own way.
Go their own way.
Their own righteousness. Your laws and your statutes they boldly present.
So holy.
And on that road to destruction, standing on diluted doctrine, claiming salvation before the day. Lord, I want to be pure and holy. I want to behold your glory. I want to shine in your kingdom where no ungodly shall live.
And now we have the reading of the law, starting in Exodus, the 20th chapter, verse 1 through 17. Okay.
And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Now let's go into Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter. Read verses 13 and 14.
Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
Revelation chapter 22, verses 14 and 15.
Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie.
Sisters and brothers, that's the reading of the law. And I have to ask the question, what's wrong with it? As always, it is good to stand before you on the Lord's Sabbath day. You know, sisters and brothers, this lesson on sodomy, a lot of the young people don't know what the word sodomy stands for. It's for mostly homosexuality. Nowadays, they've made it to the point where it's just as right as a man and woman coming together and getting married. Because men are marrying men and women are marrying women. We're not here, sisters and brothers, to condemn. We are here to teach this word of God. Because sin is sin. I don't care what flavor you call it. And the Lord told guys like me to warn the people of him. Those guys like me are called watchmen. So we're going to go and show you that, because we're going to get right into it, because nowadays everything is go, and it's get to the point where if anybody have a problem with it, they become the problem. But when it comes to the church, sisters and brothers, the church got to speak out on it. When the church stops speaking out on all truth, then it's time for the church to close its doors. It's all that simple. And the Israel of God is a church indeed. So we're going to start this in Ezekiel. Ezekiel, the 3rd chapter. Because we are going to do what the Lord wants us to do. And let's let the people know the Lord is the one that don't care for this. Now, you do what you want to do. But at least you have to be warned. Ezekiel chapter 3. Ezekiel chapter 3. And we're going to start reading at verse 17. Ezekiel 3 and 17. Okay, go ahead.
Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me.
Now, and I'm standing in this same position. The Lord has made me a watchman. I am indeed a watchman, sisters and brothers. And he said, I want you to hear the words of my mouth and warn the house of Israel from me. This is the Lord telling you better warn the people from me, because I'm the one that they got to look out for. Go ahead and read.
When I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die.
Go ahead.
And thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked from his wicked way.
Go ahead.
To save his life, the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at thine hand.
Now he's telling you. So now when I say to the wicked, and I tell you what wickedness is, and you don't go and tell them what I told you to tell them, they still gonna die in their sin. But their blood gonna be on you. And so the watchman don't want your blood on him. He's gonna let your blood be on you. But the Lord said, if you don't warn them, they're gonna die in their sin. But then you got to pay for it. Go ahead and read.
Yet if thou warn the wicked, and he turn not from his wickedness, nor from his wicked way,
go ahead.
He shall die in his iniquity, but thou hast delivered thy soul.
So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm delivering my soul. Because the Lord said, if you don't tell them what I'm going to do to them, or show them what I'm going to do to them for their behavior, they're going to die in their sin. But it is going to be on you. And sisters and brothers, I have enough of my own sins that I have to deal with. I don't want yours on me too. So it is with men. So we're going to go and look at this. We're going to start in Genesis, the 13th chapter. Genesis chapter 13, sisters and brothers. See, the Lord have a whole lot of Bible, and nobody reads it. And there's one thing you have to understand, sisters and brothers, is that if the Bible, if the Lord have it written in his book, he wants us to know about it. It's all that simple. If he didn't want us to know about it and he didn't want it to be taught, it wouldn't be in the book. But the Lord wants us to know about this. He wants guys like me to come step forward and point this out. Because nobody will pick up the Bible on their own and read. And then a lot of time you read and you don't understand everything that you read. But we're going to learn what the Lord don't want you to do, what he's not going to tolerate. And we're going to show you some consequences for doing this. Genesis chapter 13, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. 13 and 1. Okay, read it.
And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south.
Now this is Abraham before he became Abraham. God hadn't entered into the covenant with him yet. But when he come out of Egypt, he had a lot of riches, him and his wife. Go ahead.
And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold.
So the Lord had blessed Abraham real early, because this is the one that became Abraham. But skip down to verse 5 and go ahead.
And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together.
Go ahead.
For their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together.
So now Abraham and his nephew Lot, his brother's son, both of them had a lot of riches, cattle and everything. So it was they had so much until they couldn't get along together. They, cattle, was fighting against one another. Skip down to verse 12. Verse 12 and go ahead.
Abraham dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom.
Go ahead.
But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly.
Now see, Abraham, he ended up in the plains, but then Lot moved close to Sodom. And eventually he moved into Sodom, sisters and brothers. That's Sodom and Gomorrah. But the Lord said they was very wicked and sinners before the Lord. Before the Lord. You have to remember that, sisters and brothers.
Yes.
It's not before man. But skip down to verse 18. Verse 18 and read it.
Then Abram removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord.
So now Abram moved, actually Hebron is southern Jerusalem. That's what it is now. But now Lot moved into Sodom and Gomorrah. Skip down to verse 18. Verse 18. Chapter 18.
Chapter 18.
Let's go to Genesis chapter 18. Genesis chapter 18, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Genesis 18 and verse 1. Okay, read it.
And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day.
So now Abraham had moved, and like I said, that's southern Jerusalem, and while he was sitting, the Lord showed up. Go ahead and read.
And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground.
Abraham knew who these guys were. So he ran to him and bowed himself. Go ahead and read.
And said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant.
Go ahead.
Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on.
Go ahead.
For therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, So do as thou hast said.
You know, people ask you if God and angels eat. They did this time. He said, now let me get a little water for you to wash your feet. Let me go and put together a morsel of bread, and I'm going to kill me a nice little cow, bull or something, and we're going to feed you. Go ahead. And they said, go ahead and read.
And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal. Knead it and make cakes upon the hearth.
Go ahead.
And Abraham ran unto the herd and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it unto a young man, and he hasted to dress it.
Go ahead.
And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat.
Now, these was 2 angels and the Lord, sisters and brothers. What Lord? Jesus, because you ain't never seen the Father at any time or heard his voice. But then they came and just looked like regular men. But they must have had something identifying about them that Abraham knew these wasn't regular men.
Right.
But anyway, he went through this, and he prepared for them, and they sat down, and they ate it. Now skip down to verse 16. Verse 16, and go ahead.
And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom. And Abraham went with them to bring them on the way.
Go ahead.
And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation.
Go ahead.
And all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him.
Now, he knew what Abraham was going to become, sister and brother. So he said, shall I hide what I'm getting ready to do to Sodom and Gomorrah? This guy here going to be a great nation, and he's going to run his household. So I'm going to let him know what's going on. Go ahead and read.
For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord.
Go ahead.
To do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he had spoken of him.
Go ahead.
And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know.
That must be some real ugly stuff going on. So much until the Lord said the cry of it came clean up to heaven. So now I have come down to see if it is bad as it looks. The Lord come from heaven and brought two angels with him. Go ahead and read.
And the men turned their face from thence and went toward Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked?
Now, Abraham going to come and he's going to start pleading with the Lord for Sodom's sake. He said, will you destroy the righteous with the wicked? What did the Lord say? Go ahead.
Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city.
What if you got 50 in it? Go ahead.
Wilt thou also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner. To slay the righteous with the wicked.
Go ahead.
And that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right?
Well, I wouldn't have the nerve to say that to the Lord. But Abraham was trying because he knew his nephew was down there too. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes.
Now, he started to plead. He started out with 50. But we're going to skip right on down to verse 32 and see what he done got the Lord down to. Verse 32, go ahead and read.
And he said, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake.
He started pleading at 50. And the Lord said, I ain't going to destroy it. Then he said 40. Then he come on down, finally he got down to the last one. He said, if you just find 10 there. And what did the Lord say?
And he said, I would not destroy it for 10's sake.
And
the Lord went his way as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place.
So the Lord promised Abraham, if I could find 10 righteous men in Sodom and Gomorrah, I won't destroy it. But there's one thing about sin, sisters and brothers. It don't, if not checked, if not dealt with, it just proliferates. It's get worse, worse, and worse. Now let's go into Genesis, the 19th chapter. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. And look what happened now. 19 and 1. Go ahead and read.
And there came two angels to Sodom at even. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom.
Go ahead.
And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them. And he bowed himself with his face toward the ground.
So now the Lord didn't show up with these angels. The Lord probably went on back to heaven. But he sent the angels down there to check it out. He just wanted to come and deal with Abraham. So when Lot saw these angels, he knew that they wasn't regular men. So something about them, you probably recognize that they're not. But like Paul said, be careful how you treat a stranger because you might be entertaining an angel in unaware. But Lot knew who these guys was. Go ahead and read.
And he said, behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house.
Go ahead.
And tarry all night and wash your feet, and you shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the street all night.
Go ahead.
And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him and entered into his house, and he made them a feast and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat.
Look, when he said they said I'm going to live in the streets, he pressed on him because he knows now y'all don't want to be in this streets. So he got them to go in the house with him, and he went in and he baked, threw a feast for them too because he knew who they was. Go ahead and read what verse?
Verse 4.
Go ahead.
But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter.
Ain't that something? All these men, old and young, from every quarter, no matter what their station in life was. What did they do? Go ahead and read.
And they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came in to thee this night? Bring them out unto us that we may know them.
Now, one woman in the crowd, all men, and they surrounded Lot's house and said, where are the men that came in? Bring them out to us that we may know them. In case you don't know what we may know them in the Bible, that means that we might have sex with them.
Yes.
All the men in Sodom and Gomorrah is going to come and rape these two men.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. Go ahead.
Verse 6. And Lot went out at the door unto them and shut the door after him and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly.
He said, look, don't do so wickedly. This is wicked. Go ahead and read.
Behold now, I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof.
Now he offered his 2 virgin daughters to these guys, but they wasn't interested in it. They sodomites, homosexual. What happened? Go ahead and read.
And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed so upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door.
So now you're going to come down here in our city, mister, and you're going to judge us? I tell you what, we're going to do you worse than we were going to do them. So they're going to grab Lot and rape him too.
Yeah.
So they pressed to the door, and what happened? Go ahead.
But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them and shut to the door.
So now what they did, they pulled Lot in the house and shut the door, and what did they do to them men? Skip down to verse 15. Verse 15.
Verse 11.
Read verse 11. Go ahead and read.
And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door.
So what they did, they blinded them. Looked like if these guys had had any sense, they would have known, whoa, wait a minute. This is something bigger than meets the eye. Yeah. Now they blind, but they were still trying to figure out how to get inside that door. Because they were so perverse. Now skip down to verse 15 and go ahead.
And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city.
Go ahead.
And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth and set him without the city.
So they told Lot, get your 2 daughters. They had already told him, look, you got any relatives here? Yeah, I got it. And then he went, well, go warn him. He warned his 2 daughters who was married to somebody else. They thought Lot was crazy. So he said, now I want you to take your 2 daughters and your wife and get out of here. But Lot drug his feet. But what happened? God was merciful to Abraham.
Yes.
So them angels grabbed Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters, and they brought them up out of Sodom and Gomorrah. Because we're going to destroy this place. Because when the Lord decides he's going to destroy us, somebody's going to die. Now skip down to verse 24. Verse 24 and go ahead.
Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven.
Go ahead.
And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground.
So the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah and all the cities around Sodom and Gomorrah because they had infected them too, sisters and brothers. And you can look nowadays and see what's going on, can't you?
Yes.
It started a little, now it's proliferating, and somebody think that, hey, we win in this. No. The Lord going to have the last word. Sodom and Gomorrah, sisters and brothers, the Lord didn't have this written in here just because to fill up the page. He wanted us to know. This is the price of this kind of behavior. Now let's go into Jude, the little book next to Revelation. Jude. Don't have but one chapter. Jude is a little book next to the book of Revelation, next to the last book in the Bible. And we're going to start at verse 3. Jude, like I said, not but one chapter. And we're going to start at verse 3. Go ahead and read it.
Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that ye should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints.
He said, look, I gave diligence to come unto you and to tell you about the common salvation. See, because the Lord have it out there, whosoever will, let him come. He said, look, I thought it diligent for me to exhort you and honestly, that you should honestly contend for the faith, which was one delivered to the saints. In other words, you got to stand up and you have to defend this word, sister and brother. And somebody try to twist it or try to make it so that you can sin without consequences, you're supposed to know, no, this is what's written in the book now. This is what the Lord said. Now skip down to verse 5 and go ahead.
I will therefore put you in remembrance, though ye once knew this, how that the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt,
go ahead,
afterward destroyed them that believe not.
So he reminded what happened to Egypt. This is what people don't understand. When God brought all of Egypt out, it said it was 600,000 footmen, besides women and children. Don't you know that everybody that came out of Egypt from 20 years and old, except for Joshua and Caleb, did not get into the promised land? Because they sinned against God. And they repeated the sin and they would not repent. He killed them all, except for Joshua and Caleb. He even killed Moses. So he's using this. I want you to remind the people of me now. Go ahead and read.
And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation.
Go ahead.
He has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day.
And the angels that rebelled against me, I threw them out of heaven. Now they're on the chains of darkness. They're running around on this earth, but you can't see them because the Lord have them under chains of darkness. But they're here. He said, I want to let you know I didn't let them get away with nothing. Go ahead and read.
Even as Sodom and Gomorrah, and the cities about them in like manner.
Go ahead.
Giving themselves over to fornication, and going after strange flesh.
Even Sodom and Gomorrah, and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh. What strange flesh? It is strange for a man to go after a man and a woman to go after a woman. That's what he's talking about. Go ahead.
Are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire.
He said, now I gave you, and I'm showing you, look back, because they are an example of what I will do to people that do the same thing. Don't think that I'm going to change my mind. I ain't going to do it. So, but nobody reads this, sisters and brothers. Nobody cares. Now let's look at some consequences of that kind of behavior. Any kind of sin is consequences. Yeah. But let's look at this one today. Let's go into the Judges, the 20th chapter. That's right after the book of Joshua. Joshua come out to Deuteronomy, and then you have Judges. Judges chapter 19, I'm sorry. Judges chapter 19. Because the Lord have this written here, sisters and brothers, because he wants you to know that, look, there are consequences for this. You can't do stuff like this. And we're going to show you can't even promote it. This is something that you walk away from. Verse 1, Judges 19, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Okay, read it.
And it came to pass in those days, when there was no king in Israel, that there was a certain Levite sojourning on the side of Mount Ephraim, who took to him a concubine out of Bethlehem, Judah.
Now, this is before they had the first king. God hadn't appointed a king or nothing. So he had him, this Ephraimite had him a concubine that he got from Bethlehem, Judah. Go ahead and read.
And this concubine played the whore against him and went away from him into her father's house to Bethlehem, Judah, and was there 4 whole months.
Now, she went out and slept with somebody else. That's what he mean, played the whore against him. Then she ran to her father's house. But the cat apparently loved her. Go ahead and read.
And her husband arose and went after her to speak friendly unto her and to bring her again, having his servant with him and a couple of asses, as she brought him into her father's house.
Go ahead.
And when the father of the damsel saw him, he rejoiced to meet him.
So he was glad. His daughter was married to a priest, but his daughter had a problem. But we ain't dealing with her today. But go ahead and read.
And his father-in-law, the damsel's father, retained him, and he abode with him 3 days. So they did eat and drink and lodged there.
Now, father-in-law wanted to keep him there. He kept trying. Skip down to verse 10. Kept saying, stay another night, stay another night, another night. After a while, the guy said, look, I got to go. Verse 10, go ahead.
But the man would not tarry that night, but he rose up and departed and came over against Jebus, which is Jerusalem. And there were with him 2 asses saddled. His concubine also was with him.
So now he went by this town Jebus, but that wasn't, Israel hadn't taken it over at that time. But go ahead and read.
And when they were by Jebus, the day was far spent. And the servant said unto his master,
go ahead.
Come, I pray thee, and let us turn into this city of the Jebusites and lodge in it.
So let's start in there what a Jebusite. But what did his master say? Go ahead.
And his master said unto him, we will not turn aside hither into the city of a stranger. That is not of the children of Israel. We will pass over to Gibeah.
Now, he was an Israelite, so now he don't want to deal with strangers, non-Israelite. So we're going to go over to Gibeon, and we're going to stay among our own people. Big mistake. Skip down to verse 15. Verse 15 and go ahead.
And they turned aside thither to go in and to lodge in Gibeah.
Go ahead.
And when he went in, he sat him down in the street of the city, for there was no man that took them into his house to lodge.
So they sat in the street. You know, that's what happened, and usually somebody would come and give you somewhere to live. But go ahead and read.
And behold, there came an old man from his work out of the field at even, which was also of Mount Ephraim. And he sojourned in Gibeah, but the men of the place were Benjamites.
Now, so this whole place was Benjamite. That was occupied, but he was a guy from Ephraim, so he came from his labor, and he invited this guy in. Skip down to verse 20. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. I'm bringing where you been up here. You sure you okay?
I got it.
Okay. Verse 20, go ahead.
Verse 20. And the old man said, peace be with thee. Howsoever let all thy wants lie upon me. Only lodge not in the street.
No, because he wanted, and the man told him, no, don't stay in these streets. Just come on in here. Whatever you want, I'll take care of it. Go ahead and read.
So he brought him into his house and gave provender unto the asses. And they washed their feet and did eat and drink.
Go ahead.
Now, as they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, certain sons of Belial, beset the house round about.
Go ahead.
And beat at the door and spake to the master of the house, the old man, saying, bring forth the man that came into thine house, that we may know him.
Now the man had a woman too, did he? But they didn't want him, want her. They wanted the man. So bring the man that's coming to your house, bring him out to us that we might have sex with him. That's what we might know him is. That sounds familiar, don't it?
Yes, it does.
Go ahead and read.
And the man, the master of the house, went out unto them and said unto them, nay, my brethren, nay, I pray you, do not so wickedly. Seeing that this man is coming to mine house, do not this folly.
Don't do this foolishness. This is wicked. Go ahead.
Behold, here is my daughter, a maiden, and his concubine. Them I will bring out now.
Now, here's my daughter, a maiden, which she's a virgin, and this man's concubine. I give you both of these women. Go ahead.
And humble ye them, and do with them what seemeth good unto you, but unto this man do not so vile a thing.
Go ahead.
But the men would not hearken to him. So the man took his concubine and brought her forth unto them, and they knew her and abused her all the night until the morning. And when the day began to spring, they let her go.
Now, notice the virgin daughter didn't go out there. The Lord always delivered the innocent. Some way he let this woman, which had already played the whore, let her go out. And what they do, they didn't design on women all anyway, so what they do, they abuse this woman all night. And when they let her go, there wasn't nothing left in her. Go ahead and read.
Then came the woman in the dawning of the day, and fell down at the door of the man's house, which her Lord was.
She was too weak and too messed up to even knock on the door. She just fell down in front of it, and go ahead.
Till it was light. And her Lord rose up in the morning and opened the doors of the house and went out to go his way.
Go ahead.
And behold, the woman, his concubine, was fallen down at the door of the house. And her hands were upon the threshold.
Now, the woman couldn't get no further. She got to the house and she fell down and her hand was on the threshold, and he thought she was still living. Go ahead and read.
And he said unto her, Up, and let us be going. But none answered. Then the man took her up upon an ass, and the man rose up and gat him unto his place.
Now, she was dead.
Yeah.
So he got up and took her home. And pick up the tempo just a little bit, okay?
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
And when he came unto the house, he took a knife and laid hold on her concubine and divided her together with her bones into 12 pieces and sent her into all the coasts of Israel.
I mean, this guy was upset. He took this woman and he cut her into 12 pieces and sent her to every tribe in Israel. He was really upset. Go ahead and read.
And it was so that all that saw it said, there was no such deed done nor seen from the day that the children of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt unto this day. Consider of it, take advice, and speak your mind.
And that's what he wanted to know. Now, y'all see what done happened? Told him all that went down. Because he got their attention when a part of a woman showed up. And apparently he sent a letter too, so I want y'all to consider what had happened here. And Israel didn't like it. So they got together. Let's go into the 20th chapter of Judges here. Judges 20 and verse 1. 20 and 1. Okay, go ahead.
Then all the children of Israel went out, and the congregation was gathered together as one man, from Dan even to Beersheba, with the land of Gilead, unto the Lord in Mizpah.
So the whole nation's come together. Even though they didn't have a king, still the 12 tribes come together because they still communicated with one another. They was one nation. Go ahead and read.
And the chief of all the people, even all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God. 400,000 footmen that drew swords.
So now these guys came, these were soldiers here. They came to go to war. 400,000. Skip down to verse 12. Verse 12 and go ahead.
And the tribes of Israel sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, What wickedness is this that is done among you?
Go ahead.
Now therefore deliver us the men, the children of Belial, which are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and put away evil from Israel.
So now they send men into Benjamin. So look, send these guys out that did this evil, that we might put them to death. Because we can't have this kind of stuff to go on in Israel. What did the Benjamites do? Go ahead.
But the children of Benjamin would not hearken to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel.
But they wouldn't listen, sisters and brothers. Not only would they listen, let's see what happened. Go ahead and read.
But the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together out of the cities of Gibeah to go out to battle against the children of Israel.
Now you got some men that had done all this evil. And before you would turn them over to be punished, you're going to go to war against your brethren. And that's what they did, sisters and brothers. Skip down to verse 18. Verse 18 and go ahead.
And the children of Israel arose and went up to the house of God and asked counsel of God and said, which of us shall go up first to the battle against the children of Benjamin? And the Lord said, Judah shall go up first.
Now, so they asked counsel of the Lord because they had the Ark of the Covenant there. And the Lord would still answer, said Judah should go up first. But go ahead.
And the children of Israel rose up in the morning and encamped against Gibeah.
Go ahead.
And the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin. And the men of Israel put themselves in array to fight against them at Gibeah.
Go ahead.
And the children of Benjamin came forth out of Gibeah and destroyed down to the ground of the Israelites that day 22,000 men.
Boy, looked like the Benjamites was in the right. See, wrong looked good for a minute. It prevailed for a minute. But will it continue? So they went out, the Benjamites who destroyed these Sodomites went out and destroyed 22,000 men. That's a whole lot, ain't it? Yeah. Skip down to verse 24. It's not over. Verse 24 and go ahead.
And the children of Israel came near against the children of Benjamin the second day.
Now they came against them the second day. Go ahead and read.
And Benjamin went forth against them out of Gibeah the second day.
Go ahead.
And destroyed down to the ground of the children of Israel again 18,000 men. All these drew the sword.
Now they destroyed again 18,000 soldiers. Now, this was getting to be discouraging. Keep reading.
Then all the children of Israel and all the people went up and came unto the house of God and wept and sat there before the Lord and fasted that day until even and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord.
Now, you see, sisters and brothers, resisting sin or going against it might not be easy. It might start to cost you, but you have to prevail and don't relent. So now they went to the house of the Lord and they took it before the Lord and asked him again. What verse?
Verse 27. And the children of Israel inquired of the Lord, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days.
Go ahead.
And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it in those days.
Go ahead.
Saying, shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease?
Now, he asked the Lord again, shall we go up against them again or shall we stop? Go ahead.
And the Lord said, go up.
And the Lord said, go up, and he said something that he didn't say before. Go ahead and read.
For tomorrow I will deliver them into thine hand.
Because I'm going to deliver them into your hand tomorrow. The Lord just wanted to see if they had the brass to go against sin, even in the face of self-destruction. You know, like Paul said in Hebrews, how many have you resisted unto death? You understand? So the whole thing is, they went up, he said, go up tomorrow, and I'm going to deliver them. Skip down to verse 34. Was that, what verse was that, 28?
That was the end of 28.
Skip down to verse 34 and go ahead.
And there came against Gibeah 10,000 chosen men out of all Israel. And the battle was sore, but they knew not that evil was near them. Now,
they came out against Gibeah, 10,000 chosen men out of Israel. And the battle was sore, but they knew not that evil was near them. That's the Benjamite now. They didn't know that God to decide he's going to do them.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And the Lord smote Benjamin before Israel. And the children of Israel destroyed of the Benjamites that day 25,000 and 100 men.
Now then they turned 25,000 and 100. Now the children of Israel is winning now. So skip down to verse 43. Verse 43, and go ahead.
Thus they enclosed the Benjamites round about, and chased them, and trod them down with ease over against Gibeah toward the sunrise.
Go ahead.
And there fell of Benjamin 18,000 men. All these were men of valor.
Go ahead.
And they turned and fled toward the wilderness unto the rock of Rimmon.
Go ahead.
And they gleaned of them in the highway 5,000 men. And pursued hard after them unto Gibeon.
Go ahead.
And slew 2,000 men of them. So that all which fell that day of Benjamin were 25,000 men that drew the sword. All these were men of valor.
Now, they killed 25,000 of them, Benjamites now. Go ahead and read.
But 600 men turned and fled to the wilderness unto the rock Rimmon, and abode in the rock Rimmon 4 months.
So now you got 6 months, 600 Benjamites escaped into the rocks. And they was there for 6 months, but then what did the tribes do? Go ahead and read.
And the men of Israel turned again unto the children of Benjamin, and smote them with the edge of the sword, as well the men of every city, as the beasts, and all that came to hand.
Go ahead.
Also they set on fire all the cities that they came to.
Don't you know the 11 tribes of Israel destroyed Benjamin? Soldiers, 65,000 soldiers died. Then they turned around and destroyed the cities in Benjamin and killed the men, women, and children, sisters and brothers, even the livestock. So now you had one tribe, except for 600 men, was wiped out in Israel. Why was that so? Because they decided they was going to defend sodomy, a homosexuality. I mean, all of Benjamin wiped out except for 600 men. And then 65,000 soldiers died for what? To protect sodomites and wickedness. I just want that to resonate with you a little while. See, sin is costly, sisters and brothers. But what happened was, sisters and brothers, they had these 600 men, then they realized, oh, no, we done destroyed a tribe in Israel. We can't allow that to happen. Let's go into the 21st chapter of Judges. Judges chapter 21. And we're going to start at verse 1. 21 and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
Now the men of Israel had sworn in Mizpah, saying, there shall not any of us give his daughter unto Benjamin to wife.
Now they got these 600 men, all that's left from Benjamin, because they done destroyed the whole tribe, burnt the cities, they killed the men, women, and children. And now they had made a vow and sworn that we are not going to give no Benjamite one of our daughters. But then they had a problem. We done destroyed a whole tribe. But go ahead and read.
And the people came to the house of God and abode there till even before God, and lifted up their voice and wept sore.
See, sometimes you have to do stuff you don't like to do. Now they realized what they had done, so they started crying. So they wept sore. They was really sorry what they had done.
Yes.
Sometimes wiping out evil ain't no pretty thing. And the ones that's doing the wiping out sometimes, it ain't no delight. It's just something sometimes that have to be done. So they lifted up their voices and wept sore. Go ahead.
And said, O Lord God of Israel, why has this come to pass in Israel, that there should be today one tribe lacking in Israel?
And they started crying. So, Lord, how is it this guy? How did this come to this? That there going to be one tribe missing in Israel. How did it come to this? So they had a dilemma, sisters and brothers, because they had sworn that, well, we got 600 males in Benjamin, which could get some women and continue the tribe, but they had sworn that we ain't going to let none of them have one of our daughters. So skip down to verse 5, and let's pursue this. Verse 5, go ahead.
And the children of Israel said, Who is there among all the tribes of Israel that came not up with the congregation unto the Lord?
Uh-huh.
For they had made a great oath concerning him that came not up to the Lord to Mizpah, saying, he shall surely be put to death.
So now they're looking for ways to keep from destroying the tribe of Benjamin. So now they say, look, who is among us that didn't come up? Because all of us swore an oath that we would all come together and rectify this evil that have been committed in Israel. So who is it that doesn't come up? Go ahead and read.
Verse 6. And the children of Israel repented them for Benjamin their brother, and said, there is one tribe cut off from Israel this day.
Go ahead.
How shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them of our daughters to wives?
So they're sworn to the Lord that they ain't going to give them none of their daughters. So what should we do? Go ahead and read.
And they said, what one is there of the tribes of Israel that came not up to Mizpah to the Lord?
Go ahead.
And behold, there came none to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly.
So now they had a sit in Gilead, Jabesh Gilead. They didn't come up. So let's see what happened. Go ahead and read.
For the people were numbered. And behold, there were none of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead there.
So they took account, and none of them was there. Go ahead and read.
And the congregation sent thither 12,000 men of the valiantest and commanded them, saying,
go ahead.
Go and smite the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, with the women and the children.
Now, this is something else that came out of that act. So I want you to go up to Jabesh Gilead and kill everybody, men and women, except for women that haven't laid with a man. Go ahead and read.
And this is the thing that ye shall do. Ye shall utterly destroy every male and every woman that had lain by man. And they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins that had not known man by lying with any male. And they brought them unto the camp of Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan.
So they went out there and they killed all of the men and women that had laid with one another. And they killed the babies and all the males. And all they got, and they found 400 virgins. And that's somebody else just died because of that dastardly act. Skip down to verse 19. What was it? Verse 16, right? Verse 16, read it.
Then the elders of the congregation said, how shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing the women are destroyed out of Benjamin?
See, it was 600 guys, and they only had 400 women, virgins, they got out of Jabesh Gilead. So now what we're going to do about the other 200 men? So they come up with a solution. Skip down to verse 19. Verse 19 and go ahead.
Then they said, behold, there is a feast of the Lord in Shiloh yearly in a place which is on the north side of Bethel.
Go ahead.
On the east side of the highway that goeth up from Bethel to Shechem, and on the south of Lebanon.
Go ahead.
Therefore they commanded the children of Benjamin, saying, go and lie in wait in the vineyards, and see, and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in dances, then come ye out of the vineyards, and catch you every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin.
So I want you to hide among the corn. So when these virgin daughters come out and start dancing, I want you to come out and grab your wife and hustle back in the corn. Go ahead and read.
And it shall be, when their fathers or their brethren come unto us to complain, that we will say unto them, be favorable unto them for our sakes, because we reserve not to each man his wife in the war.
He said, look, be faithful to them. Look, have some mercy on the brothers, because we went in there and we killed their wives along with their children. Go ahead.
For ye did not give unto them at this time that ye should be guilty.
He said, so you didn't give your daughters away. Go ahead and read.
And the children of Benjamin did so, and took them wives according to their number.
Go ahead.
Of them that danced whom they caught. And they went and returned unto their inheritance, and repaired the cities and dwelt in them.
Now look, 65,000 soldiers died. The whole tribe of Benjamin was wiped out, men, women, and children. And then they turned around and wiped out another township, Jabesh Gilead, and killed all of them but 400 virgin women. All because they defended Sodomy. Sodomy is just another sin, sisters and brothers. Now, Jabesh Gilead died because they was indifferent. Oh, it ain't none of my business. Hey, it got nothing to do with me. When people sin against God, it's got something to do with everybody. Because if you ignore sin, eventually it's going to reach you. It's all that simple. All this was done because these people broke the commandments of God. Sodom and Gomorrah knew better too. A lot of people don't understand. All these children were the children of Noah. A lot of these other nations other than Israel knew the law, sisters and brothers. God proved that with Abraham when Abraham says his wife was his sister. Pharaoh looked out there and saw him sport with the woman and said, wait a minute, hey man, what you doing? How come you didn't let me know it's your wife? What if one of the guys had touched her and would have brought this evil upon us? Right. They knew. So now, all of this happened, sisters and brothers, because they, first thing, tolerated and defended sin. And then you had another group, Jabesh Gilead, was indifferent towards sin. It ain't none of my business. God punished them all. Plus again, too, he let the Benjamite kill so many of the tribe to see if you have the fortitude to resist a fight against sin, even if your life was on the line. But I tell you a big secret, your life is on the line. Your eternal life. Lose it now and save it later. Didn't Jesus say them that say that find their life, lose their life, find their life, shall lose it? Those that lose their life for my sake shall find it. These guys died for the sake of the Lord. These soldiers. So now, why is it that the Lord did Sodom and Gomorrah and allowed this to happen? Let's go into Leviticus, the 20th chapter. Leviticus, the 20th chapter. Because it is very clear, sisters and brothers. See, the preachers ain't teaching this. I turned on YouTube one time. I saw a little preacher on there, and he going to tell me, where's the love? And the people that's judging, I looked at him, when he looked in his eye, I said, hey, he's sodomite too. And the people shouting, yeah, how can you do this, sisters and brothers? I was offended. And if I had been there, I'd have been in his face. You must be one of them that was spoken of in Romans, the 1st chapter, which we're going to read about. You are the preacher. Somebody got to stand in the gap. Let's see what the Lord said here. Leviticus 20 and verse 10. We're going to read verse 10. 20 and 10. Go ahead.
And the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committed adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. That's
the same thing. If you're going to go and you're going to lay with another man's wife, the Lord said, both you and the woman shall be put to death. That's the law, sisters and brothers. Sin is sin. Skip down to verse 13. Verse 13, and read it.
If a man also lie with mankind, as he lies with a woman,
go ahead.
both of them have committed an abomination.
Go ahead.
They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them.
Now, it's the same thing with the adultery. Ain't that correct? People tell you, well, you homophobic. Yeah, and I'm adulterophobic too. And I am a fornication phobic too. The law is the law. When you don't let them do what they do, you're violating their civil rights. God gave you plenty of rights with stipulation.
Your son.